Ian Castleberry. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you, Pat?
Hey, very well. You okay with the the Lions? Didn't they get beat by the bye week?
They probably did. I didn't pay attention. With the bye week, I decided to give myself a break from football and go catch a movie. So catching up a little bit on things, you know, like the Jaguars beating the Bills and so forth.
Well, I got to ask, did you see the new Marvel movie?
I did. It's pretty good.
Okay.
It's not going to be for everybody. Eternals. Some people are going to think it's really slow. There are not a lot of familiar names, but I enjoyed it.
Good. I got that one and the Bond movie. As soon as I feel safe going to a theater. By that time, though, it may be on demand. But I
was going to tell you, the Bond movie is on demand as of tomorrow, so you won't have to go to a theater to go see that. I think that one was a little disappointing in the theater, so they're trying to get their money on demand now.
Oh, okay. Well, good stuff there. Thank you for the tip there, Ian. Who knew? Well, you did, obviously. We got lots of baseball headlines to get to. Ian's appearance Mondays Talking Baseball, presented by Happy Hill Restaurant. All right, Ian, we got a few things to hit on today, and let's start first with this. The Braves. I haven't chatted with you since they won the World Series, and I find this interesting, Ian, and I think you find this more in baseball than you do in any other of the big professional sports, and that is, no matter where your team is in terms of wild card or wherever you are in the playoffs, if your team is catching fire at the right time, it's pretty difficult to stop them. A Braves bullpen that was suspect during the regular season is like a Hall of Fame staff during the postseason and in the World Series. But certainly, they caught heat at the right time. How much are you putting that with Brian Snitker and his coaching staff, as well as just some of these amazing, just so many big plays at the right time?
Yeah, Snitker did a very good job keeping everybody together, working in a lot of new faces toward the end of the season. I don't know if the Braves are really a formula that other teams could try to imitate here. I mean, 88 wins. They won the National League East by 6.5 games, which tells you how terrible the National League East was. But, you know, adding guys like Eddie Rosario, Adam Duvall, Jock Peterson, I mean, these were just great moves after losing Ronald Acuna Jr. How many teams could lose their best player and go on to win the World Series? It's almost unheard of. Also losing Marcell Ozuna. But, you know, the Braves had great pitching. They had a top three, Max Fried, Ian Anderson, Charlie Morton. That's even better than what the Dodgers were able to put out there toward the end of the season. And then also, you know, a lockdown bullpen, A.J. Minter, Tyler Matzek, who, you know, Asheville Tourist fans have to be thrilled to see him turn around his career the way he has, a Will Smith as a closer. But I don't know if this is a formula that can really be repeated. 88 wins, again, you know, that's not the fewest wins that's ever won a World Series. Listeners might know this. I mean, you know, the 2006 Cardinals won 83 games. The 1987 Twins won 85 games. So it's possible. And the Braves did win their division. They weren't a wild card like the San Francisco Giants in 2014. But yeah, baseball has become, you know, with this somewhat expanded playoff field, has become a sport where, you know, it's just important to get in, and you want to be playing at your best and getting hot at the right time. It's not necessarily the best team. The Dodgers are here, you know, holding up their hands. You're like, hey, I thought we were the best team, but they weren't playing their best, and they weren't at their healthiest when it counted the most.
Yeah, so factors did play into this. That's a really good point to bring up, as Ian Castleberry joining the Wise Guys, recapping the Braves World Series Championship. Huge parade in downtown Atlanta. That was pretty cool to see. And here we go, Ian. The Dodgers and the Astros, believe it or not, are ahead of the Braves to win the World Series in 2022. This by, you know, the Vegas odds makers. Is that a fair assumption in your mind? Like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, like, is that too warm, too cold, or just right?
No, I think that's just right. The Dodgers, especially, the Dodgers had their starting lineup set, even if they don't make an off-season move. You know, they could lose Corey Seager, but they'll plug in Trey Turner at shortstop, Justin Turner at third base. You know, they have some moves, some decisions to make, whether to bring back Chris Taylor and so forth. But I think with that starting lineup, the Dodgers already look solid. They'll have to make some other moves, which we'll talk about. The Astros, too, I don't know if I would call them as much of a favorite if they lose Carlos Correa in free agency. That would be a huge loss, of course, the best shortstop in baseball. They would have to sign somebody. But if you're going to lose a shortstop, this might be the year to do it because you know, the free agent market's loaded with shortstops. They could bring in a Trevor Story or a Corey Seager, somebody like that to replace Carlos Correa. I don't think there's anybody on hand like there was, when they lost George Springer and they had Kyle Tucker there ready. But as we saw in the World Series throughout the postseason, the Astros do still have a good starting rotation and an excellent bullpen. So, yeah, I think putting the Dodgers and the Astros ahead of the Braves in the odds for 2022 is accurate and is fair. And, if you're a Braves fan, do you really care? Because, what were the odds going into 2021?
Yeah, good point, man. Yeah, speaking of the Dodgers, they're loaded, but what moves might they make in the offseason, if not just gaining more players, maybe shedding a few?
I think they are going to lose Corey Seager. That's going to be an interesting move. How much money is Corey Seager going to want as a shortstop? We've talked about maybe he wants a $350 million contract, which, who among us does not? But the Dodgers don't have to bring him back, and they might prefer to allocate whatever money they would have spent on him on starting pitching. And that's really where they need to concentrate the most. I just mentioned that the Braves, even though they don't have that massive payroll and can pull off huge trades, by the end of the season, their starting rotation looked better than the Dodgers, which is almost unfathomable considering how much depth the Dodgers had going into the postseason. But, they're coming back with Walker Buehler and Julio Urias and 3 question marks, really, in their rotation. I think they're going to re-sign Max Scherzer. We'll see if they re-sign Clayton Kershaw, if he comes back healthy. And maybe they're going to have to see if somebody like Tony Gonsolin or David Price is able to fill that 5th spot. Is Dustin May going to recover from Tommy John surgery? That might be too much to expect this coming season. But I would expect the Dodgers to attack starting pitching. And if they don't get Max Scherzer or Clayton Kershaw, there are some other really big names on the free agent market. Noah Syndergaard, Marcus Stroman, Carlos Rodon, Robbie Ray, Kevin Gausman had, revived his career with the Giants. So the Dodgers could go in a different direction and kind of sign some veterans to lower contracts, like a Zach Greinke and Rich Hill, bring those guys back and have them fill out the back of the rotation. So there's a couple of ways the Dodgers could do this, but I really do expect starting pitching to be their priority.
All right, we'll see where that goes. I know I had a Cardinals fan posting on Facebook an article out of St. Louis, like, what are the Cardinals' chances of landing Max Scherzer? We'll wait and see. The Dodgers obviously are going to make the move and see if they can keep him. It ain't going to be cheap. I wonder if they can afford both him and Kershaw at this point, especially with Kershaw diminishing a little bit there. But anyway, we'll move on as Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys presented by our friends at Happy Hill Restaurant. Thanks to the D.C. Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines for bringing us Ian. And, hey, Ian, Buster Posey retires, arguably the best catcher of his generation. I think he's a Hall of Famer. I think there's no doubt he's a Hall of Famer, but you look at his hit total, just 1,500, just 158 home runs. He did have a career batting average of 302. I see him getting into the Hall of Fame on just those numbers, but he's such a nice guy. He's had such a fabulous career. He's had some injuries, but is he a first-ballot Hall of Famer, Ian?
I think he is. I could see the argument that, we could keep him off from getting in his first year on the ballot. We'll see who else is on the ballot when Buster Posey is eligible. But I think the big knock against Posey, you mentioned the hit totals, the home run totals, is his longevity. And he played about 1,370 games, so not even 1,400 games. He missed, he opted out of the 2020 season. He played only 45 games in 2011. He began his career playing 7 games in 2009. So I think some voters might look at his career and say he didn't play enough games or have a long enough career to be, an absolute, no doubt, Hall of Famer. But you said it. He's the best catcher of his generation, and I always feel like that's where the Hall of Fame discussion begins. Was he the best at his position when he played? And I think it's difficult to argue that Buster Posey wasn't. A 302 hitter, hit for good power. He's Rookie of the Year, Most Valuable Player in 2012. Champ. He won 3 World Series championships, and I think that might be the one thing that overtakes, any longevity arguments, is that he was the face, really, of that Giants dynasty when they won 3 World Series titles. And I think This is also going to be interesting with not just, we're talking about all the offensive categories. Buster Posey was also an excellent defensive catcher, very good at blocking pitches, blocking the plate, didn't allow a lot of wild pitches. And as we see pitch framing become more important in how catchers are evaluated, that's not something that's necessarily quantifiable, when we look at counting stats in a Hall of Fame career. But as that becomes more important in how catchers are evaluated, I do think a lot of the younger voters are going to take a look and say Buster Posey was one of the best at framing pitches and stealing, pitches on the edge of the strike zone that maybe were just outside, but, making a quick turn of the glove or snatching pitches back into the strike zone to really help his starting pitchers. He called great games. And again, I think, if we're going to talk about somebody like Yadier Molina and his defense getting him into the Hall of Fame, I think you have to hold Buster Posey to that same standard as well.
Yeah, he's in. It's just a matter of when. And I tend to agree with you. I think the 3 world championships, the face of his organization. But it wouldn't surprise me if you get in on the first ballot. As Ian Castleberry plays with the Wise Guys, presented by our friends at Happy Hill Restaurant, Patton Avenue, across from Gross Funeral Home. Ian, all may not be well with Major League Baseball. Tell us how baseball could have a work stoppage starting on December 2nd. I mean, at least it's in the offseason, but still, how concerning is this, and what are the sticking points here?
It's hugely concerning. I mean, nobody, baseball is continuing to decline in popularity, but nobody or no other sport can step on its own foot and trip more than Major League Baseball. I mean, coming off, a pretty competitive World Series, and baseball is in the national spotlight, and right away there's talk about a work stoppage. And this probably shouldn't be a surprise if you think back to last year and all of the arguments that there were between the owners and the players about whether or not they were going to play a COVID-shortened season. We almost didn't have a season last year, which a lot of fans and the listeners might remember. And those same issues have not been solved in terms of course, it always comes down to money. Teams, major league teams, the owners want to eliminate salary arbitration because that's the way that players can make more money during. You have to play 6 years, and their final 3 are eligible for salary arbitration, and that's when salaries go up. Those first 3 years, teams can pay players whatever they want, and in most cases underpay them. So arbitration allows players to make up for that. No wonder the owners want to get rid of that. The owners, they want to lower the luxury tax threshold. $180 million is the reported amount. They say, if you spend more than $180 million on payroll, a luxury tax would come in. The players, of course, want that to be higher. They want teams to spend more money. And then payroll floor is also going to be an issue, telling teams that, okay, you have to spend at least this much. And players are mixed on that. I think players don't want a payroll floor because they think it's the first step toward a salary cap. But I think baseball really does have to address, you have teams that are tanking and intentionally losing games and seemingly having no interest in winning because they want to lose, they want to get draft picks, and that that hurts baseball overall. It affects free agency. Players aren't going to sign with those teams because those teams don't want help. Expanded playoffs is another big issue. Of course, the owners want more playoff games. They want more games on TV when networks are willing to pay for them the most. The players want a big piece of that money if it comes. And then universal DH is going to be another big issue of contention between the owners and the players. So to sum all this up, the owners reportedly are going to lock out the players when the collective bargaining agreement runs out on December 2nd. And this is just going to cripple baseball's offseason, any chance it has at getting headlines. I heard Chris Smith saying that some teams, there might be a free agent frenzy. Some teams might try to beat this December 2nd deadline, and some players will want to also. Yeah. They'll want to cash in before there's a spending freeze. But baseball's never really worked that way, so I have to disagree with Chris on that. I don't think there's going to be this big free agent frenzy. And then you're going to have players like Carlos Correa, Corey Seager, Trevor Story, Freddie Freeman, Chris Bryant. These guys should be in the headline signing major contracts. I mean, look how they do it in the NBA. Look how they do it in the NFL. And baseball is just going to say, we're going to lock everybody out and just not do anything this offseason.
Oh, my God. How concerned are you that this could carry over, to the beginning of the season or at least spring training?
I think it could carry over into spring training. We could be talking, I hate to say this, we could be talking in February. Like, when is there going to be agreement? The guys are working out by themselves. They don't want, these are big issues that are going to determine the future of the sport. And we haven't had a work stoppage in 26 years, believe it or not. But things are so broken between the owners and the players in Major League Baseball. So many core issues that they disagree on. I certainly hope this is resolved by the end of the new year, but I do think it's going to go into January, into February, unfortunately.
Oh, man. Well, we'll be following it thanks to Ian Castleberry, of course. And Ian, before we let you go, I'm looking at the clock here. We've got just about 45 seconds. The St. Louis Cardinals did not win the World Series, but have every right to be defensive about a record they recently set.
Yeah, the Cardinals won 5 Gold Glove awards, which is a Major League Baseball record. Nolan Arenado, that shouldn't be a surprise. That's his 9th Gold Glove at third base. Paul Goldschmidt at first base won a Gold Glove, his 4th overall. Tommy Edman, the second baseman, won a Gold Glove for the Cardinals. And then in the outfield, left fielder Tyler O'Neill, center fielder Harrison Bader, each won Gold Gloves. And this is a testament to the great job that Mike Schilt did as Cardinals manager. He really improved the team's defense, position by position, and overall, as a team, it's one of the many reasons that his firing was so baffling by the St. Louis Cardinals.
Boy, no kidding. But congrats. You know what? That puts a smile on his face, I'm sure, and hopefully helps him as he looks for his next gig. Ian Castleberry, you're the best. Appreciate you, buddy. As always, that's Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys, presented by Happy Hill Restaurant.